Hello, University of Michigan content managers. This is the next video in our Basics of 4Win series. This is the one on live data. It's going to build on everything we've done until this point. In particular, if you have not watched the weather video and the content feed video, I highly recommend going back and watching those. We've got our sign here. This is the basic one we've been working with. It's got our weather, it's got our time, it's got an RSS feed at the bottom, it's got this slide deck of places where I've lived. And we want to add a new one to this rotation in this main region. We want these places to cycle out with events from the University of Michigan. And for that, we're going to use this live data feed that is supplied to us by Student Life. It's the events.umich.edu week feed. They provide this in a number of formats. Live data is always taking data from somewhere else, parsing it onto the sign, and getting the sign to reformat that in a way that you want to use it, or that you want to display it. In this case, I've got start times. I've got images of many of these events. I've got a description of what the event is. I happen to know there's a lot more information that's stored here, so we want to use that. There are several feeds that are supplied to us, and we can use any of these. You need to be careful when you're selecting from these. In particular, I would be careful if you use the CSV spreadsheet. This is going to download one, and that will work. That's fine. But copy the link address for that, because you want the sign to download this each and every time it goes to it. And when you do that, you'll notice it just starts downloading it automatically. That's fine. If you put that in as the address for the sign, it'll download that CSV. So just a note there for that in particular. We're going to use the JSON feed for this example. This on my screen right now is what a JSON feed looks like. And this highlighted here, there we go, is an XML feed, the RSS feed. We don't need to be concerned with the what each one of these do. What we need to know is what's included in a grouping. This is just a copy of the text that's on this page brought into Notepad++. What we need to know is the token. What they do is tell it how deep down the data to go. So let's take a look really quick at what this is. This, and the reason we're using Notepad++ is it's going to highlight where a node ends and begins. See these red brackets? This is everything that Student Life is providing for one event. In particular, pay attention to where the indentation changes. 4Winds does not read children nodes or data. So ID is fine. It'll read that date and time. It'll read start time, blah, blah, blah. It'll read all that. When it gets down to this links, it will read links. It will not understand what this is, the type, the URL, and title. Those are children of the main node. That's fine for this example because there's more than enough for us to work with. Keep in mind, if you're using your own data that is provided by a web administrator, that you might need to work with them to say, hey, I need the JSON feed not to have these in children, because I want, let's say that you had dates and then a child was start and a child was end. You're not going to get that. You'll get date and it'll be blank. So they need to put the date start and end as non-children node under here. Now you can tell it, I want you to dig down into links, but then you'd only get this title, URL, title, type, URL, title. So that's all how the inner workings of these feeds work. But for our purposes, what we need to know is at the top side here, I got more than enough data to be working with for my example. So let's go ahead and grab that JSON feed link. It's that right there. It's the URL. Let's go into 4Winds and let's make a new object. Right click, new content in this category, live data, as always. Let's name it. This is going to be live data demo. And we're going to paste in the URL. Now, duration and page duration. Standard practice is just to use the duration. Keep in mind that we have a lot of different events happening. What we actually want is 3 columns of events. Event 1, event 2, event 1, event 2, event 3. But we want that 2 pages of them. So 6 events in total, page with 3 events, a page with 3 events. So for that, we're going to say 14 seconds. Let's go up and let's say 20 seconds. That way it's 10 seconds with 3 events up, 10 seconds with 3 events up. I don't need the page duration for that. You could, if you wanted to, come in here and say, show a page for 10 seconds. That would work and do the same thing, but we're going to use the cursor function to do that. So let's unclick page duration. We need to set this. Remember, this is a JSON feed. We plugged it in there. We need to go down to data format and we need to say JSON. And it's going to bring up this panel. It's going to say select token. For our example, we're fine with what we've got. Nothing. There's no token. There's no top level of this. If I wanted to dig down, I could put a token to get it to dive down into links. For this purpose, we're just going to say okay, because we have the data we need. And then we want to go to the caching panel. And there's a couple options here. Update interval. How often should I go back to the source data, the actual XML feed from Student Life in this case, and use that? 15 minutes is fine for me, but you might want to go down to 5. Depends on what that data is. If it's doctor-patient wait time, you're getting how early, on time, or late a doctor is going to be, then you might want to be more granular with it and go down to like a 5 second or 10 seconds. I wouldn't go less than 5 seconds. You might end up DDoSing your server by hitting it too often. Use network location no cache says that I should not cache this data. I should actually go download a new copy. No matter what happens, no matter what you see, always get a new copy of the data. These are useful. If you want to know what the rest of them are, there are specific circumstances for these. Click on this little eye up here by caching behavior and it will describe how each of these function. There are cases to use some of these if you're not changing data often, like maybe a feed of background images, or it's your directory isn't changing often, hopefully. Next in here, if no data or no data by filters are alternate content. What this does is it tells the sign, if for some reason you cannot get to the data, the server went down. Let's say that Student Life is doing maintenance on their server and there's no events because the server's down. Or there's no events on upcoming is Memorial Day when I'm recording this. Maybe there's no events on Memorial Day because staff are not there. Then what should I do? If you leave it like this, none, it's going to try to get to that data and say, well, there's nothing to do. And I don't know what to do because you didn't tell me what to do when nothing's there. You will get error after error after error logging in your sign. If that update interval is very small, you could, and you're checking lots of different data sources all over, you could crash the sign. So in that case, you need to tell it what to do if it fails. Click on the little ellipsis button here, and you will get a browser through your content for here. And that's what you're telling it to do. Play this alternate content in the event that this doesn't work. Back to the general tab and let's click OK, save those changes. We haven't worked with the layout yet. We're going to drag this over to the main region. Now it's playing, but it's not been arranged on what to do. That's why this blank screen is here. Let's work with that. Right click, you can go to edit source content and then click the layout button, or you can go to edit source content layout and it'll take you straight to this layout window. If your data was not connected or there was an error and it couldn't get to the feed, you get an error window here that says, I'm sorry, I can't get to anything. This means it's at least successful. It can get to that feed whether or not it has anything. The next thing I need to check is, am I getting data to work with? Click this add field button. And these are all the little options I can bring in from that data source: building ID, building name, cost to event, date, and all these kind of things. That's good. It means I've got data to work with. Similar to our weather and time window, we have this layout window, and similar to our content feed, we have these options over here with the addition of this row adding fields from the live data. That's something we couldn't do with content feed. This is a header. If you have data and we want to say this is the happenings at UMich from Student Life, we could do that. We probably should. We should give credit to who is providing our live data. I click add field. I don't want to bring in this data because I just want to say something. I don't want to use data. I want to say something. This created in our main region. That's what this little box down here, this box is the a row of content. This is the header. Drag this up in there, it'll move. Now I have this box that's empty. I can say happenings at Mish, provided by Student Life. I would use, in this case, an actual logo image, but I don't have one handy, so sorry, Student Life. There we go. Please, if you're actually doing this, use an actual logo. This row is, the header is controlled. Oh, let's click up there. Here. So let's say that I want 64 pixels of header. I can also change this font as we've done with the time and date. I can move it over, make it bigger. Let's take a look at this bit of thing here, this box. This is one row of data. If we think of our XML feed or JSON feed as a standard Excel spreadsheet or a Google spreadsheet, what it is looking for is across that row of data, what should I do with that? You could force it to fill the entire page. We know that this is a 4K sign, so it is 3840 by 2160. I could fill that. It's going to be too big because I have this header here, but if I got rid of the header, it would be fine. If I want to remove this header, give room for the header, I know that that's 64 pixels high, so I could remove 64 pixels from this, so I could do 96, and that should be one. See, one exact fit, one row of data will fit on the page. Zoom out a little bit. It's going to make that pink row harder to see, but you can see the full page. That, if you can't see it on the film, is where the pink row is for the bottom. One row with a header, full page. Now, in my case, I want to tile this. So I actually want 3 columns of data. But I do want the data to go all the way to the end. So we break out our trusty calculator and we take 3840, we divide by 3, 1280. If I make this 1280, I have one row of data. But I haven't told it to tile. So I need to go to this layout behavior, click on this and say tile to fill horizontally. That will now fill the region horizontally with columns of data. So now I can have event A here on the left, is event B here in the middle, and event C here. It won't show that because I'm going to arrange one tile and it's going to do the same across the region. And then I will tell it to show that for 10 seconds. So let's add the cursor function. Remember we did this with the content feed. 2 rows of data, 6 rows. We want 6 rows of data each play, 3 columns of events. So we've got 3 extra, which will force it to flip to a new page and play 3 for 10 seconds each because our duration was 20 seconds. So 10 for the first 3, 10 for the second 3. Let's add some data here. Now, these are all the ones that we could bring in. If we look back at our data, we have event title. That is a title event. I could use combined title. We would have to know what that is. It's probably this occurrence title. So it's taking event title and occurrence title and combining it. So like section A, section B. So let's add a title. Add, go through our list, event title. I just want the event title. Now it's going to play the text. Let's make this bigger so that we can see it. And it's a title. So let's make it bold. And let's expand there. That title should be centered in there. And we've got our event title. Now it's going to take that, and in each one of those is going to go get that data and paste in the. Let's add a new field. And let's add, we notice that some of these have images. So let's add images to the background of each of these rows. So we know that a row is 1280 by 2096. So let's click on that guy and say 1280 by 2096. That is now filling that area, but with the image URL. So I need to tell it what to do with that image URL. If I right click on this sign, or if we zoom in again, and we go to the top right-hand corner of this guy, you can see a little black arrow. Click on that and go to formatting, or right click in the field. This field contains a path or URL to an image or video. Now it knows when I bring up that URL, I shouldn't just display URL image, HTTPS image here. I should display that as an image or a video. So we want, in our case, zoom to fill container. Click OK. And we now have this image that is going to, if the event has an image, it's going to fill this page. But it's going to be very colorful, and it's also on top of our other information. So we want to send that to the back. If we click on it, right click, and send to the back, we now have the event title over the top of our image. Our images are also going to be pretty colorful. So I want to add a filter to that without any of this data. So I'm going to hit escape. Now I have an empty box. If I do the same thing, 1280, 2160, I believe, and start in 00, I now have an empty box that's covering the entire sign. Let's give it a shape, rectangle. We're going to kill the border. Then we want to select the fill, select a blue color, and make it slightly transparent. Let's send this to the back. Now that blue is behind the other ones. I could continue sending it back and do all that, or I could go over here to row and I can move these guys around. Event title should be at the top, then the empty color layer, then the image URL layer. So you can click through these as well to select them if you need to work with one. Let's add another field. We're going to add date start, and we're going to move that down underneath the other one. And we're going to make it a little bit bigger. Now, I kind of want to use this formatting, but I've got a lot of data on this page. I don't right now. Let's say we did. I can copy this and say copy format and paste format, and then it copies. And then I can go over here and go, I don't want that to be bold because it's the date start. I want to have a slightly smaller font so I can shrink it down. And that way we have a clear title, and then we have this. Let's say I wanted to format this. This is a date, so it's going to bring in whatever the date format is over here. So in this, it's date start. It's going to show year, month, day. But if I don't want to show that, I can say formatting, and then we get our time and date formatting by clicking this field contains date or time. Same options from the date or time. I'm going to say I want to show the day. Let's copy this. I want to alter this guy because I've got the same settings. I have a font that I like. I just want to change. This one says, instead of Monday, it's now going to say, the 2nd or whatever, the 21st. Copy this guy. I can right click and copy. If I didn't have layers over here that are saving the whole thing, I could right click. But if I hit Control V, I can just paste that region as well. And then I can move this guy over. Kind of line him up. You can do perfect by using these fields right here and go, this one is, let's click in our date and start. This one is starting at Y238, so we should start at Y238 and line them up. So in here, we can go into formatting and change this so that now it shows the date. And now I have options. This over here, this text allows you to change that. Let's say that I wanted to say, instead of date start, I wanted to say time start, which should be down here. Time start. There we go. That will I delete the other one. Now it's going to be time start. Keep in mind with something like date and time, when you're formatting and you say, I want to format like this. If I add something like this, start, that looks like that's going to work. But if I click OK, and we're getting our first preview of how this works, start 00 because it doesn't know how to parse the time, including that start text. So if I go back in here and I edit source content layout and I delete that text that says start, now we'll get an actual number, the day. In this case, if you wanted it to say something like that, you go into the layout and you create another blank field. Click off. There we go. Empty. You'd say start, and we can copy the format. Copy format, not copy. Paste the format, and we can move this guy over. and we can overlap or move or do whatever we need to do. In this case, I'm going to say start over on the left, and I want the date start time to start in the middle, and that should probably work pretty close. Start, there we go. Now notice we have our images wherever they were provided. It's being shaded out by blue. We have the start and the start time shown both areas. And that's all there is to live data, dragging in these different fields and determining how they should show up on the sign. You can draw this in from a Google Calendar. You can use XML feeds like we're using here. You could ping a SQL server and get data there. As long as the data is available, you can pull it onto a sign. Be very careful with your data though. Don't put anything that's like a student name, grades, those kind of thing. Obviously, doctor and how long or how soon they're going to be, that's fine. Don't put what patient they're going to see. Once you get all of that arranged, you can get anything from what we had before to something that looks a little bit more like this, where it's rowing across more like a calendar. In this case, as source content layout, what I've done here is I put the student life one, I put a date and start time. I told it in the background that it's going to have a little circle dot that is being filled over with the date start. In this case, it's formatting with just that 2. Then this one is formatting with just Sunday. And then I pulled in event time, building name, description. You can add these rulers if you need them by clicking up here and going to view and hitting rulers. That will add them. And then anywhere you click up here will add one of those blue lines for you to work with. And it'll snap to those as you're moving objects around. I know that live data can be intimidating, especially when you're looking at a wall of information like this. But once it's on the sign, you're really just doing design work. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll answer anything we can. Our next video will be on scheduling, how to make sure that this only plays during certain times of the day or on certain days. So look forward to that. I've been James Lingerick for ITS Digital Signage. Thank you for joining us and you have a good day.